Welcome to Conversations from St. Norbert College, a program that invites you into discussions taking place in your community on today's local and global issues. Now, your host for Conversations from St. Norbert College, the Dean and Academic Vice President of the college, Michael Marsden.
Good evening, my name is Michael Marsden, and I'm your host for this edition of Conversations from St. Norbert College. Our special guests this evening are Father J. Fostner, O.Praem, who serves as Vice President for Mission and Heritage at St. Norbert College, and Dr. Joy Pahl, Assistant Professor of Business Administration, also at St. Norbert College. The three of us joined almost 20 other members of the St. Norbert College community on a tour of the Norbertine Abbeys in Germany, Belgium, and France this past May. Our conversation this evening will center around what we learned during that trip about the qualities that make for a vibrant and successful abbey in this day and age. Father Jay and Joy, welcome to the program. Really pleased to have you here.
Thank you, yes.
What would you say would be the most important thing you picked up from that trip that you learned about the Norbertine traditions from all of these abbey visits that we made and all the conversations we had over the 2-week period? What would you say would be the most important?
Probably the consistency of those values. They might be lived out in different ways, but the value of hospitality, contemplation, inaction, and that thread of Norbertine history that's vibrant today.
Interesting. And Father Jay?
I would say the same thing. I was very pleased that we're on the right track. When I go over, we've been promoting the values of communio, action, contemplation, stability, and to go over and see that all the abbeys have, in some way, shape, or form, promoting those as well, either through a brochure or a big bulletin board near the church. And the one thing that I really liked, and I think we're trying to do the same thing with the Abbey here and the college, is focus again back on stability, commitment to locality. So many of the abbeys there, when you walk out the door, the neighborhood's right there. Across the street, there's homes, and that's not the case here. Right. So we need to work a little bit extra hard to make sure that we're paying attention to the locality.
To really become integrated into that community and so on.
Exactly.
We had a group of what, 22, 23, I can't remember the total number, but it was about
22 at the end, yeah.
At the end. And they bonded, I think, as a group as
Absolutely.
well as they went through this process. Now, you, of course, organized a good portion of it together with Father Xavier Calavecchio. But what do you think defines the group experience? You've talked about the individual experience. What about the group experience?
Well, it grew as we grew in our understanding of those Norbertine values and traditions, but just spending time together. And I think that's a luxury that we don't afford ourselves here on campus. We're very busy with our day-to-day responsibilities, but when you're on a trip like that, you can really spend meaningful time with your colleagues and get to know them at a much deeper level. And I learned so much from many of my colleagues that I never would have had the opportunity to learn in another situation.
I think, Father Jay, I'm sure you've thought about this, and that is that one of our three main values of the institution or traditions would be the Norbertine tradition, in addition to the Catholic, in addition to the liberal arts. So we have 900 years of Norbertine history, and this tour really helps you appreciate that 900-year spread, doesn't it?
Well, I think two things happen on the tour that can't happen in any other way. First of all, our Abbey is 100 years old, 115 years old. The Abbey building is 50 years old. Those Abbeys are 850 years old, and when you're there, you feel it. You can, just the artwork and the building itself. It's a whole different feel. But the other thing that doesn't happen here, that does happen on those 2 weeks, is we're living in Norbertine. We're going to prayer, we're having dinner with the Norbertines, we're recreating with them in the evening, and I think people understand, this is what the life is all about. Right. And a number of people who said they'd like to live it for longer if they could. So
and it's also a clarification that the Norbertine tradition is not a monastic tradition in the strict sense of the term. It's the order of canons regular, which means they live in the world, but they live a communal life as well. And I think that distinction becomes very clear as you visit the abbeys, you see how they operate, you talk to the priors, the abbots, and the confers and about how they live their daily lives. I think it's pretty impressive and so on. Did you find that to be informative?
Absolutely, and the different ages of the different men who had become part of the order and what stage they are at that particular time, from the abbot at the Left Abbey all the way down to that novitiate,
Yes.
who really shared those same views and the vision, but at a much different stage in life.
Yes, very profound, actually, very profound. Now, we had the chance to talk to several of the representatives of these abbeys, at least that, and we brought back some interviews with us. And one of the ones we talked with was Father Ulrich Christian Keller, who goes by the name of Uli, at the Roggenburg Abbey in Germany. And I asked him specifically what he thinks defines a successful abbey. And let's take a look at what he had to say. Father, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your background, because you came from Windberg, where we were yesterday, and you came to Roggenburg about, you said 1995, thereabout?
1994, yes.
And to restore this abbey, ultimately. How do you account for the success, both of Windberg and also Roggenburg, when many other abbeys are simply not succeeding?
I think the key to this answer lies in the constitution of our order. It is a very vivid combination of community and work. You live together and you go out for work. And in the evening you come back again and you find a cozy home, a nice community, hopefully, and you are in exchange with your confreres. All problems of life, of work, of spirituality, of faith can be discussed in the community. And, well, for work, you're quite on your own if you want to, and you can work outside the monastery.
Doing many things,
Yes.
teaching parish work, but you
Correct.
come back to, and that's the term communio, that's so important.
That's correct.
Right. But what about solidarity, or the idea of locus, and how important that is to the order?
It is important for me because I think I need a home where I know I am at home. I have read I try to explain what home means to you. It is a place where you don't have to justify yourself.
You're welcome for who you are.
Correct.
Exactly.
You speak the language, you know the mentality. You're a part of it.
Now there are 13 of Norbertines here at this abbey in Roggenburg, and the average age, I think we said earlier, was 40 years.
Correct.
That's remarkable, isn't it?
It
When
is.
So many other abbeys aren't succeeding with bringing new vocations in. What is the difference?
Probably the community itself.
Vibrant.
Vibrant, vivid, on new ways. Westward ho. That's it. And it's this spirit of doing things, of making things new, of interpreting the past for the future. And it is easier to go into a community and share this life with people of your own age.
Well, Father Jay, we just listened to Father Ulrich comments about why his abbey at Roggenburg is so successful. What strikes you most about his comments?
I think the hope. The Abbey of Roggenburg was suppressed, and they came back and they're starting it again, and with great hope and great energy and great joy. And when I think how our abbey started with Abbot Pennings and just two guys, and sometimes I think we think disaster is here, and there have been many times throughout the church's history where vocations have declined and come back. And I think we have every hope that will happen here as well, as we continue to regenerate our values and get excited and create a spirit of care and concern and communio.
I think it's interesting that the diocesan priests are, in a sense, joining orders, at least in Germany in some numbers. And I think that's interesting because I think they're lacking the community.
We actually have one right now that just joined Albuquerque.
Really?
So in some ways the same thing might be starting to happen.
And again, for our viewers, Albuquerque is a priory of St. Norbert Abbey.
Right.
And so it's dependent upon the abbey here, but it exists as a separate entity in Albuquerque.
Exactly.
Dependent upon this abbey. Joy, what about Father Ulrich's comments? What struck you?
Well, some of his comments could relate to what I learned at Roggenburg, and so I'll try to make that bridge.
Sure, of course.
But I had asked I think it was the prior who gave us
At
the
Roggenburg?
tour.
Yes, it
And I
was.
said, how did you decide to build this beautiful, green, eco-friendly kind of a resort and conference center. And he said, we need a way of creating income so that this order can thrive and continue to do its work in the community. And I thought they had a vision for what they could do, and it's beautifully done. It's very thoughtfully done. But from a business perspective, I thought that was a nice, they recognized their need, they looked at their surroundings, and they identified the best fit for how they could continue to do their great mission in the world. And I think that's part of their identity, and that leap of faith that it took to do, as Ulrich said, look to the future with the history and the past in mind.
Well, another abbey we visited was Zijn Abbey, which is really, as I understand it, dependent upon the abbey at Hamburg.
Hamburg.
And I think it's very interesting. We talked to two people there particularly. One was Frater Raphael Dominic Bointer, and also Martina Steinberg. And they are sort of in charge of trying to bring that abbey back to life. But I think what's different about that abbey, as I understand it at least, is they really are populated heavily by third order Norbertines. And I didn't understand until I did the conversation with both Raphael and Martina that the third order can apply to priests who are not necessarily Norbertines, and to deacons as well as to lay people. And so their whole future apparently rests in this idea of a third order. So let's hear a little bit about what Raphael and Martina have to say about their restarting Zijn Abbey. And you've been here since fall of 2005?
2005.
Yes. Which actually opened in the fall of 2005.
Yes. Yeah, we came here in May
and you were sent here by the abbot at Hamburg.
Yes,
correct?
Hamburg. Yes.
Hamburg,
yes.
Sorry. And he sent you here in order to establish a community or to work with a community that was already here. This is what we're unclear on.
No, he actually, this was an empty place when we arrived, and basically say it was pretty ruined, the place. And
the walls behind you are the original walls there.
These are, yeah, they're from 1202 when the place was built. That little piece is actually visible, and the basement and the courtyard. If you go out in the courtyard, you see pieces that are from 1202. And then, of course, everything you see in here is rather recent.
Now, the church itself is a parish church.
Yes, it is.
And the abbey part is actually this building between the church and the parish offices.
That's correct, yes. Originally, all of this was the abbey, because you can't have an abbey without an abbey church. The entire complex is an abbey. Now, since the abbey was suppressed in 1803, there was no more abbey here because it loses its title, abbey. Mm-hmm. But when this tertiary community with Martina and
that's the third order
community was established, it was what's called canonically erected, which means the bishop and the abbot, they agreed to it and officially erected a new community. It was erected by the title of Zijn Abbey Community.
Martina, how did you decide to come on this journey?
Wie kamst du dazu, dass du dich dazu entschieden hast, hier mitzumachen als Mitarbeiterin?
Der Abbot hat mich gefragt,
the abbot asked her
ob ich Interesse daran hätte,
if she was interested to
aufzubauen.
found this conference center together with
Und da
me.
das eine spannende und
And because it was a very exciting a task of responsibility, she said, yeah.
But it's also been a lot of work, I'm sure. Father Jay, the idea of a third order is something that is not as common in this country, is it? At least we don't use the term third order for Norbertine life. So could you clarify that for our viewers?
It's a very old term. I think the term that we use now is associate, and we have a good number of associates with our abbey. And in fact, in a few weeks, there'll be about 60 or 70 associates from the United States coming to the college from our other two abbeys, Dalesford as well as Orange County. And we also use the term oblate, which are people who are even more connected to the order. But because all the abbeys are independent, they have the right to choose what will that look like. What will the associates, the oblate program look like? So it's a little bit different, but it is growing rapidly. In fact, I think 2 years ago we had an international conference of associates in Monde Abbey, which is one of the abbeys that we visited. So it's growing rapidly, and we're very excited about it.
That's interesting. But now, let me just, but at Zijn, their whole future rests upon having a sufficient number of third order members to make it work?
I think right now, but I think the goal would be to have both. To grow the associate, or the third order as they're calling it, but to continue to grow the professed Norbertines as well.
How did you respond to the experience at Zion Abbey?
I thought it was remarkable from a lot of standpoints. First of all, I didn't know about the third order and the oblates and that whole kind of different category of Norbertine, the order, the Norbertine order, but also the commitment of these individuals to renewing and reinvigorating this particular site. Raphael and Martina were inspirational in their devotion and their dedication and hard work to making this place come alive. And it was alive. Beautiful setting, beautifully warm people, and I think they will continue to attract more individuals to join them.
I'd like to remind our viewers that you're watching Conversations from St. Norbert College, and our special guests this evening are Father J. Fostner and Dr. Joy Pahl. And our topic is what we learned from our recent Norbertine Heritage Tour, which took us to Germany, Belgium, and France, and visiting Norbertine Abbeys in those countries. One of the abbeys we visited was Lef Abbey in Belgium, and we talked with Father Hugh Johann Lucas Bada. And here's what he attributes to the success of abbeys such as Lef Abbey.
What is good in this abbey is that we live a family life, I would say. We try to live according what St. Augustine says, we friends of God. We try to follow the Lord as friends, as brothers, and well, perhaps it is something interesting in the world of today, but we are very few. The abbey in Belgium is the only one that speaks French.
Now, Joy, what do you take away from the experience of Father Hugh at Lef Abbey, and what did that really convey to you in terms of their success story?
It was interesting to hear him comment about the importance of living in community, and the word that he used was family, and that is actually what I sensed there. There was a real feel of family and kind of brotherhood and kindness and gentleness, and as I mentioned earlier, I could sense that between the abbot and the new conferor, and so he definitely lives exactly what he says that he does.
And that was the abbey at which the abbot, who had just been released from the hospital, came and made a special effort to come and visit with us and spend an evening with us, despite the fact that he had just gotten out of the hospital, I think, that day. So remarkable. But what would you take away, Father Jay, from that conversation with Father Hugh?
Well, I think it's easy to be family there because they make beer and they're having a good time and partying all the time. But I think the family piece is exactly the point. If you recall the evening when we were sitting around the table with some community members, we asked the novice, why are you here? And he said, because I feel like it's a family. I come home to a family. And if you remember the abbot, who had just gotten out of the hospital, beamed. It was like, that's exactly the answer he wanted to hear. And they're a small community, but you can tell by when we ate with them, they do their own dishes. They clean the abbey. They're taking care of it. They're working together. It's a normal daily life. It's a family.
And I think his story about the 94-year-old priest who had gone off to a parish life and could not return to the abbey because he simply was not prepared for that community life after all those years apart from it. So it's very poignant.
Well, I was just going to say the word love kept coming up in that conversation that evening with the abbot almost all the time. It's central.
It was interesting. One of the final abbeys that we visited was the Abbey at Monday in Normandy, France, and I was able to have a similar conversation with Father Dominic Marie Duza. And he provided us, I think, in that conversation with yet another perspective on Norbertine life. But he also commented on the eternal gratitude that he and his fellow citizens in France have towards the Americans who liberated that abbey and France on the days following D-Day. So let's listen to him. The abbot made a point of saying that he's very pleased to have us here, and not the least of which is that we're, of course, from St. Norbert College, but also because we're Americans. And as he said, we do not forget. And I believe from your bell tower, you actually, on a clear day, can see the beaches of Normandy.
Exactly.
And this was an abbey that, in fact, was liberated by the American troops. in 1944. What, 4 days after the landing?
Exactly, on the 10th of
10th of
June 1944. And I don't know exactly why, but we feel we're still very grateful. You know, we like American people because we know that we owe our liberty, and we are very impressed by the sacrifice your relatives,
well, the young men
made in those days. You know, because. They could live in Kansas or Arizona, I don't know where, very far from here, and have never heard of Europe, never heard of France, of Normandy, and suddenly they came because they thought it was important to do this and to give their life for this, and many of them never came back, and so we like this, and we cannot forget this.
How? This is a hard question, I know, and we can talk about it from different points of view, but you are a relatively young community here, relatively, and you have novices, some here and some at some of your priories. You're doing very well. How do you account for that? When other abbeys are having difficulty getting vocations and preparing for the next generation, you seem to have a huge success here.
This is a difficult question, yes.
I mean, we can talk about the grace of God, which is true, but
yes.
God needs sometimes a hand.
But you must help
helping
God.
Hand, right.
Well, I would say two kinds of answer. First of all, I think that our type of life, our form of life, which combines community life from one side and also pastoral work, is really a great need for church of today, and the young young men who join us, they know that they don't want to be isolated priests in their parishes, right. living lonely, and they need community life, and our community life is really warm, joyful, and encouraging for pastoral work. So, but we combine both. Here we are very clear about that. We are not monks. If you have a monastic vocation,
you're not Trappists.
You must not enter the abbey. Here you must be also able to live inside and outside, both of them. And I think that
that balance is appreciated.
Yes, and I think they are attracted by this type of life. But in another, d'un autre côté, the other answer would be that we know that it's more difficult to explain, but that the youth today they need
they need some order.
Yes, some order, some formal things. Our liturgy is very formal.
Oh yes, and beautiful.
Our chapter, the way we live together is very formal.
And you have chapter every day.
Yeah, every day, every night we have chapter, and all this sort of very visible life. We are very careful about identity. We wear the habit even outside of the abbey, and so that everyone would know that who we are, what we do, and that we are Norbertines, and we are proud of being Norbertines. Well, we're not proud of for ourselves, but for the order. For the order, and I think that it works, if I can say so.
No, I think you have a good point. Joy, Father Dominic Marie's comments, about communities, again, some seem to amplify some of the earlier comments, but there's some distinctiveness there, isn't there, on Monday, that from our collective experience, there's something that you took away from Monday probably that was a little different than the other abbeys?
I would say yes. There were a lot of Norbertines right there, and the frequency with which they joined together in liturgy in formal ways for
beautiful chant,
beautiful singing, 4-part harmony, several times a day. That was very special, very unique, and a real love for music and liturgy. Also, we shared Mass with them on Sunday, and the community members who came to Mass. It was just a wonderful experience to share that. I think there were, Jay, how many priests were taking part in the Mass?
I think there must have been About 20, I think.
20,
pretty much all
20 Norbertines and 6 altar boys. It was
Monday
very
special for you, Father Jay, as well?
Well, it was. Father Dominic says they're not monastic, but they're the most monastic community I think that I've been to, and I think that shows the independence of our abbeys. That each abbey really does have a lot of autonomy to do and live the life the way they feel is most fit. But I found it just a beautiful place, not only because of the abbey, but visiting the beaches of Normandy and the cemetery, just incredibly
almost overwhelming to
it's
see
a
that.
life-changing experience, that in and of itself. So it was just
and his comments about the liberation were just absolutely moving, as was the abbot's earlier that same day when the abbot greeted us and gave us his comments about the gratitude of the French
exactly
for the liberation. Yeah. I would like to thank our guests, Father J. Fostner, O.Praem, and Dr. Joy Pahl, for sharing their experiences from this recent trip with us. So please join us for future programs as we continue our exploration of the world of ideas. Until then, I'm Mike Marsden for Conversations from St. Norbert College.